Hello all, welcome to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. So as all of you know, this is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis. So for today's discussion, we've picked up number of articles from both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express, which becomes extremely important and they are relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. So before we actually move into the lecture, let us have the daily dose of motivation. So what you see behind me is the motivation for today, which says that to be on the top 1%, you have to be willing to do 99% of what others are not doing. That is what? To be in the top 1%, you have to be willing to do what the other 99% of the people aren't willing to do. So you need to stand out, be consistent, and you need to be very persistent in your hard work. Okay, so that is what is going to take you or make you achieve your aspiration and the bigger dream of becoming a civil servant. So moving forward, what different does Narayana IAS Academy bring to you in order to ease your preparation and in order to make you clear the UPSC CSE examination is that we have actually come up with number of initiatives as well as products that will help you in this particular path. So we have our 1-year prelims cum mains integrated course for the 2026 examination and for your 2027 examination we have a 2-year prelim comes the mains integrated course. Okay, and also the total number of instruction hours for our online program will be 1000 plus hours. I'm sorry. It's going to be 1000 plus hours, that is 800 plus hours on GS as well as CSAT, and we have 200 plus hours on current affairs. And if you see the overall program, we have actually made thorough analysis of the PYQ, be it both the prelims as well as mains. We are actually coming up with the current affairs capsule also, which will be a one-stop solution for your current affairs that will essentially integrate your static with that of the dynamic or the evolving topic of the day. Okay, so as I told you, we have the general studies as well as CSAT. Also, we have 200 hours of current affairs. We have a strategic micro schedule. That is, it actually helps you prepare on a daily basis by setting shorter targets and moving closer to your goals amidst this extreme, or you can say a vast syllabus for the UPSC examination, specifically your main syllabus. Okay, and also we have expert faculty who have enough experience in this particular field and arena to make the preparation easier. And we also have a test series which actually helps us as a great feedback mechanism on providing personalized feedback to all of you. Now moving forward, in order to make your work easier, what happens here is that we have a research and development team who work on curation of content which is extremely relevant for the examination by categorically or thematically categorizing the PYQs of both the prelims as well as mains examination, and that has actually been integrated in the writing of our GS as well as NCERT books as well. So we provide you 12 Navigator NCERT which is integrated with the recent trends as well as developments. And also we have digital resources where there are 250 plus model answers that have been curated and written by the experts of our team who have the experience of appearing in the interview stage of this examination. And finally, as all of you know, we have our monthly current affairs or the Navigator magazine, where we have actually released around 12 editions of the magazine, which not only helps you understand the trending topics, but also it takes you to the historical background and help you connect with the static part of the syllabus. Okay, so this will actually give you a bird's eye view, that is 360-degree or a comprehensive coverage of every topic from your static to how you will need to analyze it for your mains examination, and also will help you to present your answers and approaches better in your interview. So having said all this, let's actually get into the topics that we will be discussing for today's discussion. That is, the first topic, household spending rose around to 3.5% through the August 2023, July 2024, and this particular article has been picked up from page number 8 of the Hindu. So this particular article actually talks about the household consumption expenditure survey. Okay, so this analysis is the current one, that is 2023-2024, and we will actually see what has been the changes in the expenditure or the consumption expenditure of the households, both the rural as well as the urban households, whether there have been any kind of dietary changes, whether the consumption of cereals has actually increased or decreased, whether the monthly per capita expenditure of every individual in the house has increased or decreased, and whether it varies in the rural areas with respect to that of urban areas, and if so, by how much, is what we will be discussing in this particular article. So it is going to be a mains oriented article. Moving forward, the second article is 22% rise in enrollment after Smart Classrooms initiative. So this particular Smart Classroom initiative has been introduced as a part of Smart Cities mission, and this particular Smart City mission actually came into existence in the year 2015. So here it is important for us to understand what is the mission, because already you have a PYQ based on the Smart City program. You need to know what has been the aim, the objective, the nodal agency, and what have been the achievements and advancements so far. So this is actually going to be a prelim article. Now moving forward, the third article, very important economic article. So rupee logs steepest intraday decline in nearly 2 years. So here what is more important for us is to understand with respect to what currency do you say that rupee has declined, and here is where the concept of exchange rates become extremely important for your preliminary examination, because these concepts are actually twisted and asked. Okay, so you need to have a deeper understanding. So what is the meaning of for the exchange rates, and what do you mean by, or what are the factors that actually drive these forex reserves, or the exchange rates, and all these terms become very important. So here we'll be discussing about what do you mean by exchange rate, the factors that are associated, and what actually drive these exchange rate in the international market, etc., and what are the reasons for the steeping or the declining or falling of the value of rupee, is what we are going to see. The last article for the day, again extremely important, that is Brahmaputra Dam will not affect India and Bangladesh, says China. So China is actually defending its point on construction of a dam on the Brahmaputra River, and here it actually says that that construction is not going to affect the lower riparian countries of China as well, Bangladesh as well as India. So here we'll actually look into the concept of what is this Brahmaputra River, whether it is the longest river of the country, and we'll also be looking into what are the tributaries, the left bank, the right bank, as well as the drainage area. It originates in which of the glacier, and what are the countries it actually passes through, the states it actually it passes through. All this become very important for your prelims examination. So having had a clarity of what we are going to discuss in this particular discussion, let us quickly move into today's discussion. Okay, so the first article for the day, household spending rose 3.5% through August 2023 to July 2024. So recently we actually have this household consumption expenditure survey. So how much of the household, that is how much expenditure does a household make in consuming the goods as well as services. So this is what is the analysis of this particular article. So there has been an increase of around 3.5% of this particular expenditure that the household spends on consuming the goods and services. So here we'll be discussing about household consumption expenditure survey, and this becomes important for both prelims as well as mains, and mains it comes under GS paper 3, economic growth and development. Now let us move quickly into understanding what kind of PYQ had been asked, and if you see in 2022 we have a mains question, that is a 200-word question. Answer, when you need to, where the question was, how is the growth of tier 2 cities related to the rise of a new middle class with an emphasis on the culture of consumption. So here again they are actually talking about the consumption and how much of expenditure do people do in tier 2 cities, that is due to rapid urbanization. So here the two topics are very important. One is urbanization, what are the effects of it, and also what is a consumption pattern in the tier 2 city. So you need to understand what does the survey say. So if you see, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has released a fact sheet or the key finding of the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey for the period of 2023 to 2024. Now, let us quickly understand what is this particular expenditure survey about. It is a comprehensive survey that actually focuses on collecting data on the household consumption, that is what are all the consumption of the particular household, one particular household, what are the goods and services this household actually consumes and how much of money is being spent for it, that is the expenditure on the goods and services. It also analyzes the expenditure as well as the consumption patterns, and only depending upon when you compare what is the expenditure or what has been the consumption of a particular household this year when compared to last year, and when compared to last year, you know whether the standard or quality of living of a particular household has increased or not. So that is why we have this particular survey, and also it provides data on data which actually helps us to decide on the consumer price index. So what do you mean by consumer price index? It is actually one of a measure to measure the rate of inflation in the economy. So what do you mean by inflation? Inflation is nothing but it is a gradual increase in the general price level of goods and services. So what has been the increase in the price of this particular pen? Okay, what has been the price like last year, and whether there has been a gradual increase in the general price level of this particular good, and why? So to measure that, we actually have this particular index, that is the consumer price index. Okay, so this is actually used for that. It actually has a basket of goods and services, and there is a weight given to each of the good, through which we will actually know how much of gradual increase in price has actually happened. So in order to calculate that, we need to have this data, right? All these things. The next one, it facilitates a decision on the revision, that is whether we need to revise the base year, or whether we need to revise whether we need to revise the base year for the macroeconomic indicators. What are the indicators? That is either the national income, which is the GDP, which is calculated in terms of GDP, the gross domestic product, as well as your CPI. Okay, so this is what this particular survey actually says. Now, which is the nodal agency which comes up or conducts this particular survey at regular intervals is the National Statistical Office, and it has been conducting in regular intervals, and the first was actually conducted in the year 1951, and the latest iterations, if you see, is from the period of August 2022 to 2023 and August 2023 to 2024. So these were the latest iterations. Okay, now moving forward, let's quickly jump into the trends. The first observation or the highlight of this particular survey is it talks about the average monthly consumption expenditure. Okay, average monthly per capita consumption expenditure. So monthly per capita consumption expenditure, that is how much does a person in average or in an average of over a month, how much does a person actually spend in consuming or getting the goods and services. Okay, so this is what it is. So it actually estimated the MPCE, that is the monthly per capita expenditure, as I told you, in 2023-2024 has actually been rupees 4,122 in rural India, and it has been almost 7,000 rupees in urban India. So if you see this particular tabular column, this talks about average monthly per capita expenditure, how much a person actually spends in a month for consumption. Okay, that's what it is. So what is the share of food and non-food items? So first, if you see in food items, when you take, what do you mean by food and non-food items? Food actually includes your milk products, the cereals, etc., millets, grains, etc., where fruits, and whereas the non-food actually involves, your fashion jewelry, and it can be your bedding, that is beds, and then other kind of items associated with that, which are actually not belonging to this durable or the food category. Those are your non-food items. Okay, it can also include your conveyance, etc. So when it comes to the food category, what has been the amount a person has actually spent in rural India is around 1939. Okay, and when it actually, yeah, so when it comes to the non-food items in rural India, the amount actually spent was 2,183. So amount that has been actually spent on non-food items has been more, right? Like your furniture, etc. And what is the share in MPCE? What is the share in MPCE is 47.04. That is 47% has of the money or the expenditure has gone to the food items, and remaining 52 is actually on the non-food items, and this is for the rural area. Similarly, for in urban area, if you see the on the food items, 2,776 has actually been what to say spent, whereas you compare to the non-food items, 4,220 has actually been spent over here. So if you see share in the MPCE on food items, the urban person average on an average has spent 39%, where the remaining 60% has gone to the non-food items. So what you actually infer from this table is that the expenditure on the non-food item has actually been more. Whether it has been more in the rural India or it has been more in urban India, it has been more in urban India. So this is your takeaway. So this is first, highlight. And when it actually comes to the states or the UTs which are actually highest in this MPCE, the highest is Sikkim. Okay, that is monthly per capita. Consumption expenditure is highest both rural and urban in Sikkim, and the lowest is in Chhattisgarh. When you see UTs, the highest is in Chandigarh and the lowest is in Dadra and Nagar Haveli, DU, as well as Jammu and Kashmir. And also what has been, the state which actually has the highest difference in the urban rural percentage is that Meghalaya has around 104 percentage of difference, whereas Jharkhand has 83, that is actually followed by Chhattisgarh, that is around 80%. Okay, so this is actually your monthly per capita consumption expenditure. Next one, we'll be discussing about the trend in the level of consumption, that is average. So here we will see, when compared to 2011 and 12 levels, what has been the difference in the MPCE is what we are going to see. First we saw the region wise, that is the rural versus the urban, and also the food versus the non-food. Now we are going to see what has been the trend in the level of consumption since 2011-12 all India. Okay, so if you see in the rural area, in 2011 or 12, the amount of money that has been spent by a person in a month was around 1,430. Whereas if you see, this was in the period of 2011 and 12. But if you move 10 years ahead, the same person actually has spent around 3,773. Whereas, the next year itself, if you see, it has actually increased around 4,122. Okay, so you can actually see and a gradual increase in the monthly consumption expenditure. Okay, so this is what it is. In the urban, if you see, around 2011 and 12, it was around 2,600 rupees, which actually had a sharp jump to around 6,500, which again increased by around 500 rupees to around 7,000 rupees. Okay, now if you see the difference as percentage of rural, okay, so what is the difference in between these two expenditure? If you see, this is around 83.9 percentage in the year 2011 and 12. If you see over here, it is around 71 percentage, and if you see over here, it is actually around 69.7 percentage. Okay, so this has been the trends in the level of consumption over these particular years. Now moving to the next one. What is the trend in share of consumption of cereals? So what do you mean by cereals? Cereals are nothing but it actually includes your, wheat. It has wheat, it has rice, maize, etc. So this actually acts as the staple food in many regions of our country, right? So let us see what has been the trend in the consumption of these cereal varieties. If you see, in the period of 2011 and 12, that is a decade before, the percentage and share of cereals in average, that is how much of money I have actually spent on acquiring cereal, was 10.75 percentage of the money I spent. Okay, that is totally I have spent 52, That is, I have spent around 53% on food, of which 10% I have actually given for getting my rice and wheat. Similarly, in 2022-23, I have spent around 46%, out of which only 5% was my cereal consumption. At the same time, in 2023-2024, I have consumed 47% of total food, like it also includes cereals, milk, fruits, vegetables, etc. But of which again only 5% was my cereal consumption. Okay, so this is what is in the rural area, and similarly this is percentage of food in the urban area. Of the total 42%, only 6% was cereals. Of the total 39%, only 3% was cereals, and 39% again 3% of the only it was the cereal. So this was the comparison when compared to the 2011 trends with respect to today. So this is what it is. So now if you look at this particular graph, what does this show? This is actually the rural area and this is your urban area. Okay, so this actually shows the quantity of cereal I have consumed in the period of 2022-23. That is, I have consumed around 9.61 kg. Okay, so that is what it shows. And here in the period of 2022-23, the same rural area that consumed 9.61, it consumed only 9.3 kg. Now, if you come to urban area, in 2022, they consumed 8 kg, whereas that is 8.05 kg, but in a year itself, they are consuming 0.3 less, okay. So, they are consuming only 8.02 kg. So, there has been a decline in the consumption of cereals also in both the rural as well as the urban area. So, this is actually the takeaway. First, we actually saw what is this monthly per capita consumption expenditure, how it is region wise, that is rural versus urban. Then we saw how much is spent on food and how much is spent on non-food. Then we actually saw how much is spent on the consumption of cereals, that too in the rural as well as the urban areas. Now let's move to the non-food expenditure. So non-food actually means the amount of money you spend on your conveyance, be it your, then it can be your clothing, your footwear, as well as bedding, as well as the goods, as well as other entertainment. Okay, so these are called as the non-food expenditure, where 53% of the consumption expenditure in rural areas was on non-food, and also 60% was there in the urban areas. Okay, and also in urban areas the rent also comes under the non-food expenditure, right? So that accounts for 7%. And food expenditure, it actually includes the beverages as well as the processed foods. I was telling you, right, in the food expenditure also, a lot of money has been spent on food, but less on rice and wheat, I told you. So for example, if 60% was actually the consumption of my food, only 10% was on cereals, that is rice and wheat. Where did the majority, the remaining of 40% or 50% go? Is that it went on the beverages as well as it went on processed foods. Okay, processed foods, the frozen food, etc. That contributed to the total food consumption expenditure in the largest quantity, and that was followed by milk products, and then came the vegetables. Okay, so this is actually the consumption behavior of Indian households that has actually changed. Now you will see the last portion of it, inequality distribution of the monthly per capita consumption expenditure. This is actually calculated by using Gini coefficient. So let me explain the concept of Gini coefficient first of all, so that it will be easier for you to understand. So what do you mean by Gini coefficient? So Gini coefficient is actually used to measure inequality in an economy. Okay, and this is actually measured using Lorenz curve. What is Lorenz curve? Lorenz curve is nothing but it is a curve that is actually used in mathematics in order to express the uniformity in the distribution of a variable. Uniformity in distribution of a variable. So here let me tell you with an example. So how does a Lorenz curve actually says that? It actually says how uniformly a particular variable is actually distributed. For example, take wealth. Okay, so wealth over here. So in India, if you see, with respect to wealth in India, what happens is that top 1% of the richest individuals or richest people, they actually hold 40% of the wealth. Okay, they hold 40% of the wealth. So if you see uniformity in the distribution of equality, what does that mean? According to that principle, 40% of the people should have held 40% of the wealth. But here what is seen? Only 1%, top 1% of the people actually hold 40% of the wealth. So here what happens? There is inequality. And in order to measure this particular inequality only, we have something called as the Gini coefficient. So this is where we have the Gini coefficient. So Gini coefficient actually has a value of 0 to 1, where 0 actually shows perfect equality. Perfect equality, whereas 1 depicts complete inequality. Okay, so this can be represented in the form of a graph. Okay, so for example, let me tell you. Yeah, for example, let's take this particular graph. Okay, so this is actually the Lorentz curve. So this is Lorentz curve, and x-axis actually talks about your cumulative population. This is cumulative population, and on the y-axis you have cumulative share of income. Okay, cumulative amount of income that is shared. Okay, so if the curve, this is 0 and this is 1, if the curve is actually straight, this means what? This is actually an economy where there is zero inequality, which means what? There is complete or perfect equality. Okay, so this is what is the straight line. Okay, when the graph is straight. If there is a slight deviation and if it is actually like this means what? There is actually more inequality. And if it is further steeper like this means there is almost or there is complete inequality. So this curve is actually called as the Lorentz curve. So now let us see what this particular survey actually talks about. Okay, so inequality distribution of MPCE, the consumption inequality has declined is what they have actually told. Okay, so the inequality has declined to 0.266 and 0.314 in this particular period from 0.283 and 0.363 in 2011 and 12 respectively in rural and urban India. So let us mark this. I actually told you, right? This is 0. So this is 1. So it has declined to 0.266. So earlier it was 0.283. For example, maybe in this curve, it was around 0.283. But now it has actually decreased to 0.266. So it has decreased here to 0.266. Okay, this means what? There has been, for example, if person A in the rural area is actually spending 500 rupees, person B is almost spending 450 rupees, person C is almost spending 400 rupees. Okay, it's not like person A is spending 5 rupees and person B is spending 500 rupees. So there is not much inequality is what they are actually saying. Okay, and then similarly, in the urban areas also, it has decreased from somewhere over here 0.33 to around, 0.36 to around 0.31. So, again there has actually been a decline in the inequality. So, almost the consumption is actually towards equality. It's almost equal is what they are saying. Okay. So, if you see, it has actually, if you see these two figures, it has decreased again, and if you see these two figures, it has decreased again. Okay. So this is what is the meaning. Now moving forward, you actually have the Lorentz curve graph that I actually explained, and this is how the Gini coefficient is calculated. Okay. So here we actually come to the end of that particular important article, that is Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, and what have been the key highlights or the major observations of this survey. Now moving forward to the second article, 22% rise in enrollment after Smart Classroom Initiative. So what is a Smart Classroom Initiative? They actually want us to increase, or it actually aims to increase the infrastructure, okay, technological based infrastructure like smart boards like these, etc., in order to ease, even you guys have smart boards in your class, right? So in order to ease the learning for the students, they actually came up with this particular mission, and they observed whether there has been an increase or decrease in the enrollment rates. How do teachers actually feel about it, whether states are implementing it. Okay, so now we'll be discussing here about the Smart Classroom Initiative and Smart Cities Vision. This is actually important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now let us quickly move forward. Okay, so yeah, in the year 2016, we actually have a mains question with a brief background of the quality of urban life, talk about the smart city program. So this particular article becomes very, very important for discussion. So here, the introduction of the smart classroom initiative under the smart cities mission has significantly contributed to increasing or to improve or enhancing the quality of education in India. Let's see how and what are the achievements that have been made by this particular smart classroom mission. Okay, so performance and success, it has impacted the percentage of enrollment, because there are 22% increase in the enrollment in 19 cities when you compare the 2015 levels to 2023. And also it has covered around 9,500 classrooms in around 2,400 schools that are spread across 71 cities, and Karnataka actually leads with 30 projects. Now moving forward, whether the learning outcomes have increased or not, yes, the students' attendance have increased, the learning experiences have increased, and the teachers also prefer teaching on smart boards, etc. Next, the digital libraries have increased, where it created around 7,800 seating capacity in 41 cities. And also the SAR initiative actually came out. What do you mean by SAR? SAR is nothing but it is the Smart City Academia for Action and Research. Okay, for action and research. So this initiative is nothing but it actually enhances the collaboration between the government and the academic institutions in order to bring about or to note down what are the the projects that are actually undergoing under the smart city mission. Okay, so that is the STAR initiative. So this is for research and establishment, research and documentation. Now moving forward, let us actually quickly read about Smart City Mission. This was a program launched in 2015 in order to promote, the cities, in order to provide the core infrastructure, clean as well as sustainable environment, a very decent quality of life for its citizens by application of smart solutions. Very, very important. Okay, so bring or promote a city so that it actually eases the pressure on the people, increases their standard of living by providing them a sustainable environment, and this is nothing but by adopting the smart solutions. And this is actually a centrally sponsored scheme where it is a center as well as a state collaboration. Okay, and the implementing agency is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now let's move forward. What are the key features of this particular mission? It actually provides what? It focuses on sustainable and inclusive development, because it actually creates a number of models. Okay, so these models actually act as guidelines or lighthouses for the cities that want to become smart cities. Also under this initiative, 100 cities were selected, and implementation is done by special purpose vehicle. What do you mean by special purpose vehicle? These are nothing but companies or legal entities that are established under the Companies Act, okay, in order to oversee whether there is proper implementation of the smart city concept or the guidelines or objectives. Okay, and what are the core elements of smart cities? It actually revolves around 6 elements. Number 1, technology is actually used as a means to achieve, and technology is not a goal. So this is number 1. Number 2 is more from less. You need to create more from whatever available resources are there. Next one, there has to be convergence. Fourth one has to be cooperative and competitive federalism has to be there without, more tussle or friction between the center and the state. Next one, community should be the focus. Okay, the primary goal is that community should be the focus. And finally, there has to be integration, innovation as well as sustainability. So these are the elements of smart cities. Okay, so now after this, let us actually see what is the need for smart cities, and also we will see few of the examples. Okay, so India actually is going to, that is the rate of urbanization or the population that is estimated to be around, or who are going to reside in the urban areas, is going to be around 600 million by the year 2030. So this also comes with the problems, right, like congestion, then there are drinking water problems, there are inadequate infrastructure, etc. So for all this, smart city infrastructure becomes very, very critical or crucial. And next one, the next need is, there is enhanced quality of life through the smart cities. Okay, that is because it actually integrates the innovation and technology. Okay, so it integrates technology and innovation, and thereby it actually enhances the quality of the residents. So this is where we have example of Bhopal's. So let me write it here. There is Bhopal Integrated Command and Control Center. So this is actually a centralized facility in order to enhance the urban governance. Okay, so this actually takes care of. So this is an example of integrating technology and innovation. Example is Bhopal integrated command as well as control center, where this is actually a centralized system. This takes care of enhanced urban governance, whether it is a drinking water management, the solid waste management, then the drainage system, lighting facilities, etc. are actually taken care of over here. Next one, the second one is the sustainable urban development. This actually promotes the sustainable practices in order to actually address the climate change as well as the resource conservation. So this is where we have Pune's smart water management system. So this actually reduced the wastage of water by actually maintaining the supply or proper supply of water through the smart solutions. Okay, so this is the second example. So here we need to discuss every point with relevant examples. Okay, so next one, if you see the economic growth, the smart cities actually are the engines of growth, right? So these are engines of economic growth, and they actually attract the investments and create jobs. Like for example, here we can actually give smart infrastructure development of Kochi. Okay, where this actually spurred the economic activity and it gave a boost to the local economy. So this is also one of the example. Next one is improved urban governance. Here there is e-governance. Okay, so due to e-governance, there is actually more an active citizen participation. So what happens? The urban governance actually becomes even more transparent, responsive and efficient. So here best example can be Surat's smart city project. Surat Smart City project. Okay, and the last one is infrastructural upgrades. So here there has to be development of infrastructure, where the robust urban infrastructure has to be there, proper, in order to enhance the proper power supply, efficient public transport system, etc. So you have Ahmedabad bus rapid system. Okay, rapid transport system. This actually enhances the urban mobility. Now moving forward, the next one, there has to be digital innovation. Okay, so there has to be what? There has to be a digital innovation where leveraging the information technology to improve urban services. So this is where one interesting example is actually Indore. Indore actually has a waste management system. So this waste management system actually works totally on technology because there are GPS equipped vehicles, there are RFID tagged bins, etc. So this actually streamlines the process of waste collection as well as disposal. Okay. Next, it has to be inclusive so that even the economically weaker sections are involved, and also there has to be inclusive planning and development to cater to the needs of all the residents. Okay. So this is what it is, and here they've actually given few examples of how the achievements and the positive outcomes of smart cities mission, where Surat had actually witnessed a 20% reduction in traffic congestion. And also in citizen engagement, you can see Indore, where citizens feedback was there, and it actually secured the top spot in Swachh Survekshan cleanliness ranking. And also we see Madhya Pradesh that has adopted a public private partnership model in order to install 40,000 LED street lights in Bhopal. And similarly, Pune had installed over 150 Wi-Fi hotspots that actually provided free internet access to the residents. So these are all the outcomes, okay, because these are also part of the 100 cities that were actually selected under the smart cities mission. Now moving on to the third topic, rupee logs steepest intraday decline in nearly 2 years. So here, as I told you, what is the important concept for us to understand is what do you mean by rupee exchange rate and what do you mean by the foreign exchange reserves, that is the forex, as well as we'll discuss about the nominal exchange rate and all those things. And this actually becomes very important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination. Okay. Now let us quickly see the previous year question. So there has been a prelims question in 2019 with respect to the following, or if you see, which of the following is not the most likely measure that RBI takes to stop the decline or the slide of Indian rupee. So you need to know what is the sliding or the decline or depreciation of Indian rupee and how it is different from devaluation. And also you need to know what are the monetary and the fiscal policies that has to be taken up by the government as well as the Reserve Bank of India. And whether Reserve Bank takes care of the fiscal policy or monetary policy, what are all the monetary policies, all that you need to know. Now moving forward, let us see. So the Indian rupee exchange rate against the US dollar recently hit a near low that has reached 85.54, meaning you had to, which means what? $1 is now equal to 85.54 rupee. So that means what? You need to give away 85 Indian rupee in order to buy $1. Okay. So when there is more and more supply of rupee in the international market, what happens? The value of rupee actually decreases. Okay. So that is what it is. Now we need to understand what is the meaning of exchange rate. Exchange rate is nothing but it is the value at which one currency of one particular country can be exchanged for another country's currency. This is what it is. That is, I actually have to give 85 rupees of my money, that is one currency of India, in order to receive one currency of the US. Okay, so that is the meaning. And this is a fundamental concept that is used in international trade, in financing, etc. And it also influences the cost of exports, imports, because most of the exports and imports actually takes place in terms of dollars, right? So that is what it is. And also it is actually expressed in the value of one unit of a currency, that is $1 in terms of another. So $1 equals what? 85 rupees. So this is what is called as the exchange rate. Okay. So one currency of a country expressed in terms of equivalent to another currency of another country. So one best example is dollar and rupee. Now, what are the types of exchange rate systems? There are different kinds. Okay. 2-3 kinds are there. The first one is floating currency regime. What is this floating currency regime? Here what happens is that exchange rate, how much, that is $1 is equal to how much of Indian rupee. It is totally decided by the fluctuations in the market. Okay, whether how much is the supply, how much is the demand, what is the trade, what is the investment, all these market conditions are taken into consideration while deciding this particular floating currency regime. So, while deciding the exchange rate under floating currency regime. So, here the involvement of the government is very, very minimal and it is totally market oriented, and it is mostly used in economies like US, adopted in economies or followed in US, then EU, etc. So, let's quickly see. So, the floating currency regime, exchange rate is totally decided based on supply and demand dynamics in foreign exchange market without the government intervention, where there is fluctuation that happens freely depending on the trade, investment flows, economic conditions, etc. And it is followed in countries like US and EU. Whereas the next one is managed. This is floating, right? The name itself suggests. Next one is managed floating exchange rate, which is a combination of both, okay, where the market forces influence your exchange rate, but however there is intervention of the government in order to see to that there is no excess volatility. So government intervention is there, that is, there is flexibility with control. Okay, so it is like a blessing in disguise. So there is flexibility while maintaining the control during the crisis, economic instability, etc. And this is followed in countries like Canada, Japan, and in case of India since 1990 to 1993 we actually follow this one. Now moving forward, next one is pegged or crawling peg system. So what is this? The currency of a country is actually fixed against one particular currency, for example US dollar, or a basket of currency, okay, whether it is actually euro, whether it's yuan, whether it's yen, etc. Okay, so this is what it is, and here it is actually adjusted to inflation. So that is what the currency here is fixed to a major currency, that is US dollar, or basket of currencies, and here adjustments are made periodically in order to align with the economic changes, and that is called as the crawling peg. And this actually offers stability for smaller economies which are extremely or heavily dependent on the major economies. For example, is the Hong Kong's currency board system. So these are the types of the exchange rate system. Now let's see the types of exchange rates. Okay, so this is where we'll be discussing about the nominal exchange rate. We'll be discussing about purchasing power parity, etc. So what do you mean by nominal exchange rate? It's the routine thing, that is price of one currency in terms of another currency. That is, if $1 is equal to rupees 70, that actually means 70 Indian rupee is required in order to purchase $1 US. So this is actually used in everyday currency trading and also determines the exchange value of currency in the forex market. So this is the nominal exchange rate. Next one is purchasing power parity exchange rate. So what do you mean by that? Here, relative prices, okay, relative prices of identical goods and services of two countries are actually compared. So this basically compares the purchasing capacity of the citizens of India versus US, for example, and here it is used for international comparison of GDP and cost of living difference. Okay, so this is what it actually says. So let's understand what it is. So first, if we say, if the cost of one burger in the US is $1, but the cost of one burger in India is actually rupees 35. So what do you mean by purchasing power parity exchange rate? That means $1 is equal to 35. So this is what it actually means. Okay, so this is nothing but comparison of the price levels of the same good in two different countries, and it actually shows the purchasing capacity of the particular individuals or the citizens. Okay, so this is called as PPP. Okay, that is purchasing power parity. Now moving forward, what do you mean by real exchange rate? This actually adjusts the NEF, that is NER. It actually adjusts the nominal exchange rate for inflation between two countries, and this is what is going to talk about true competitiveness of a country's goods in the international market. Okay, and the formula is actually used for calculating this. The real exchange rate is equal to, so real exchange rate is equal to nominal exchange rate into what is your domestic rate or your domestic price level divided by the foreign price level. So this will give you the real exchange rate. Okay, for example, the nominal exchange rate is what? If $1 is equal to 70 rupees, for example I'm saying, or let's take the real life example. If $1 is equal to 85 rupees, but what happens? So let us actually see how this is done. Yeah, see, if the nominal exchange rate $1 is equal to 70 rupees, but due to the fluctuations in the price level, what happens? The burger that is costing $1 in the US actually costs only 35 in India. It shows that Indian goods, that is Indian burgers, are actually cheaper and competitive in the global market. However, the quality won't be the same. That we need to agree. That's the sad reality. So this is what is the difference. Now, the higher real exchange rate actually means a reduced competitiveness, whereas the lower RER actually means greater competitiveness. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving forward, let's quickly see what are the factors that actually affect the rupee exchange rate. First one, demand and supply of foreign exchange rate. See, I'll explain this very quickly. For example, if I'm importing some goods, okay, from any other country, say Japan or other things, they actually, I have to give them dollars, okay, to get what? I need to give them dollars in order to get the imports, whether if I'm talking about toy or car or whatever it is, I give them a lot of rupee. That is what? For example, if I have to give them $1. Okay, so I have to pay them in terms of dollar. That means what? I need to convert 85 rupees to my dollar and then pay them, right? So much of my rupee is actually gone into the market. So when I'm importing in terms of dollar, what happens? The value of rupee actually decreases because there's lot of supply of my rupee in the market. I'm going to give 85 rupees for $1. Okay, for $10, how much I'm going to give? Around 850, right? So this is what it is. Next one, so this weakens the rupee. Whereas when I'm exporting, they actually pay me in terms of dollars. So there is going to be large flow of dollars in my economy where I'm going to convert that to rupee. When there's lot of dollar circulation, the value of dollar is going to decrease and my rupee will strengthen. So same thing, there if there is a trade surplus, that is when my exports are more than my imports, my rupee is going to strengthen. At the same time, when there's a trade deficit, there's going to be depreciation of the rupee because my imports are more when compared to the exports. Next one, FDI and FBI. If there is more foreign investment into my economy, what happens? That's going to strengthen my rupee. Where there are outflows or exit of these investments, there's going to be weakening of rupee because all the money is actually flowing out of my economy. So moving forward, next one is also inflation rates. Okay, so the inflation rates, if the high inflation rate is actually there in India, if the rate of inflation is very high in India when compared to other countries, then what happens? Indian goods are going to be extremely expensive in the international market. So the demand is also going to be less, my exports are going to be less, so imports will be more. In that case, my money or rupee will fall. Also, when the RBI actually decides on the interest rates, that also influences the exchange rates. Okay, if the interest rates are going to be high, I'm going to invest, I'm going to attract a number of investors, okay, as well as lot of capital inflows are going to be there, and that is going to strengthen my rupee. And if the interest rates are very low, then the borrowing becomes more cheaper, there's more money circulation in the, or rupee circulation in the market, that will lead to depreciation of the rupee. Also, the global crude prices. So India actually imports, a lot of crude and all these things, right? Oil, petroleum, etc. So the rising crude prices will increase the dollar demand and there will be fall in the market or the fall in the rupee, whereas lower oil prices actually demands only less supply of rupee in the market, so it's going to strengthen. So rupee stability is going to be there, and also geopolitical events like there are going to be wars or global economic crisis, slow down, etc., that is going to enable the other countries in order to shift towards a safer currency where dollar is stable compared to that of Indian rupee. So then also my rupee is actually going to fall. Okay. So this is a simple concept. And now what has been the recent, reasons for rupee actually hitting the lowest? That is, you need to give 85 rupees to which is equivalent to $1. What is the reason? First one is sluggish capital inflow. It has not been that high. Next one, there is a widening trade deficit. That is, my imports are becoming more when compared to that of exports. Next one, there is slowing economic growth. And finally, the Federal Reserve's hawkish stance. So what do you mean by the hawkish stance? See, Federal Reserve is like the central bank of the United States, which is one of the most powerful, because increase or decrease in the interest rate is going to affect the global economies at large. Okay, so that is synonymous with that of the RBI. Okay, it's like the central bank of India, that is RBI. So what do you mean by hawkish stance? There is increase in case the Federal Reserve actually increases the interest rate. What happens is that the rate of borrowing actually becomes very, very high. So borrowing becomes expensive. So there is lesser circulation of dollars, that strengthen the dollars. Also, when there is higher rate that is actually provided to the investors, what happens? There will be a lot of investors who will be moving out from other countries and they'll come over to your country. Again, that will lead to rupee depreciation. So this is what are the recent examples. So measures taken by the government: you need to reduce, of course, your current account deficit. You need to increase your exports and boost the economy. Next one, market interventions have to be there in terms of buying and selling of the foreign currency like US dollars by the RBI. Next one, interest rate adjustments must be there. That is, RBI should hike the interest rates in order to attract the foreign capital inflows, okay, in order to strengthen the rupee. So these are some of the measures. And also you need to capital controls and FDI encouragement. That is, you need to relax certain rules on FDI and encourage the capital inflows, and also you need to ease the external commercial borrowing. Okay, so when the Indian companies actually raise funds through this ECB, what happens? They bring the foreign currency like US into India. So this actually increases the supply of foreign exchange in the domestic market, which can stabilize or strengthen the rupee. So this is what it is. Now let's move to our final article where we'll be discussing about the new Brahmaputra dam that's going to be constructed on the river Brahmaputra. So we need to understand about what this Brahmaputra dam is all about, and before that we need to understand particular river. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about the Brahmaputra dam, which is important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination, international relations, India and its neighborhood. Okay, now moving forward, there has already been a question: which one of the following are or is a tributary or are tributaries of the Brahmaputra river? Again, river system extremely important for the examination. So now, why is this particular article in news? China has defended its stand on building the world's largest dam on the Brahmaputra River in Tibet, stating that the project will not negatively affect the lower riparian states, that is India and Bangladesh, and it will not cause any kind of safety issues to them. This is what China has actually put forward. Now let's understand about the Brahmaputra River. So Brahmaputra River actually originates at the Chemayungdang Glacier, that is the Kailash range near Mansarovar Lake in Tibet. So this is your glacier, that is Chemayungdang. Okay, so this is the glacier which is actually located in Tibet, Kailash range. The entire length of the river is around 3000 kilometers. However, only 900 and odd kilometers actually flow inside India. Okay, so if you actually see, this particular river actually passes through Tibet. It flows through the northeastern states before joining the Ganga River in Bangladesh. Okay, so in Bangladesh, this particular Brahmaputra is called as the Jamuna. And in Bangladesh, it actually joins the Ganga river, which is called the Padma. And when they actually join, this particular Brahmaputra river is called as the Jamuna. So this is what it is. Okay. So the drainage basin, it covers Tibet, the northeastern India, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, etc. and Bangladesh. Annual discharge is, the discharge is one of the largest in the world, and it actually deals with the regional agriculture as well as water security. So if you see, you have the tributaries like Dibang, Lohit, Dhansari, Meghna, and you have the Hooghly, Teesta, Manas, Subansari, etc. So you need to know what are the left bank and the right bank tributaries. Now moving forward, the left bank tributaries involve the Dibang, Lohit, Dhansari and Kelang, whereas the right bank tributaries are Subhansari, Kameng, Manas as well as Sankosh. The states it actually covers includes Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, West Bengal and Sikkim, extremely important for the examination. And the countries include China, India as well as Bangladesh. Okay. Now moving forward, what are the existing dams in this particular river? First one, in China, there is actually the Zhangmu Dam that was constructed in 2015, and this was the first operational hydropower station on this particular river in Tibet. Okay, and under construction we have these dams, that is Dagu, Zishu, Jiacha, etc. And in India, we have the Subansari Lower Dam in Arunachal Pradesh, constructed on Brahmaputra, and India is planning the Dibang multipurpose project also in Arunachal Pradesh. Now moving forward, let us actually look into the dam that is going to be constructed by China. So you need to know, if you talk about Brahmaputra, you need to know which is the longest river in India. Because I told you river systems are very important, right? So you need to know at least the longest and the shortest river in India. The longest is supposed to be Ganga, right? So this actually starts in the, or originates in the Gangotri glacier. And the second one is Godavari. In southern India, it is called as the Ganga of the south, and it actually starts or originates in the Western Ghats and also flows into the Bay of Bengal. And followed by that, this is number 1, this is number 2, and then we also have the Kaveri, and then we have fourth one, Yamuna. Yamuna is also what? It is one of the tributaries of Ganga. And then you have the Narmada, and then you have the Indus River, and the seventh longest is your Brahmaputra, which actually has a length of around 900 kilometers flowing into India. However, the full length is around 3000 kilometers. And followed by that, you have the Mahanadi, then you have the Kaveri, and then you have the Tapti. So Tapti is the 10th longest river in India. So this is how you need to remember, and this is how it is very, very important for your exam. Now let us see the dam that is constructed by China. This is going to be located in Medong County in the Tibet region, where the river actually is going to take a U-turn into Arunachal Pradesh, and the project cost is around $137 billion, that is 1 trillion rupee. The capacity is that it can produce 300 billion kilowatts of electricity, and also the power output is actually going to be 3 times the capacity of the Three Gorges Dam. This is so far the world's largest hydropower facility. But now the newly constructed dam is going to be 3 times the power of this, and this particular Three Gorges is located at the Yangtze River in the Hubei province of China. So all these are very, very important. So here you will have the location. Okay. So now moving forward, the downstream impact, what are actually the concerns? India and Bangladesh are very, very concerned because of there will be, in case if there is any kind of tussle between India and China, there might be a lesser or a water scarce flow from China to India, or there can also be abundant flow. Okay, so that is what it is. Next one, there is also loss of fertile alluvial soil that actually comes down because all the sediments are trapped in the construction of the dam itself. Next one, the strategic leverage. So here China might use water as a weapon. So water weaponization can be done in case of geopolitical conflicts, in case China has. For example, in 2017 during the Doklam standoff, what happened? China refused to share the hydrological data with India. Next one, India's response to this is nothing but 10 gigawatt of hydropower project is planned to come around the Dibang Valley, Arunachal Pradesh, and also India is requesting the enhanced cooperation under expert level mechanisms. Okay, and now the final part is that what are the other concerns? Environmental impact, because there's going to be hampering of the fragile ecosystem, and also fragile ecosystem, that is the Himalayan ecosystem that is home to endangered species, and then it's going to affect the river biodiversity, agriculture, livelihood of a lot of people, because they actually have to be rehabilitated. And there is seismic vulnerability. The project actually lies in the tectonic plate boundary, so that is prone to frequent earthquakes, and any kind of structural flaw is going to cause a lot of flooding and catastrophic consequences on the lower riparian states. Okay, so here there is also international convention and mechanism for transboundary river disputes and movement. One is United Nations Water Courses Convention 1997. This encourages equitable utilization and cooperation in managing the transboundary rivers, but again China and India are not signatories. Okay, next one, there is expert level mechanism that is established between India and China in the year 2006, where the objectives is to share the data on any kind of transboundary rivers, including the Brahmaputra and Sutlej. This facilitates the dialogues during the seasons of flood. So this is what it is. Now what have been India's initiatives? These are very simple initiatives. Okay, we are constructing, or we are going to come up with the Dibang multi-purpose project. Next one, we are going to strengthen, okay, the ELM, where we are going to talk about or negotiate or share the data and real-time monitoring. Next is National Water Mission. This is part of India's National Action Plan on Climate Change, where we ensure water security to the vulnerable regions, including those that will be affected by these kind of transboundary rivers. Next one, flood mitigation plans, especially in areas of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. And finally, there has to be proper diplomatic engagement on bilateral and multilateral forums. Okay. Now moving forward, let's solve the questions quickly. So the first mains question is, throw light on the consumption behavior of Indian households in the context of the recent findings of the HCES survey. So we know that there have been shift in the consumption behavior of the Indian households. There have actually been revealing insights into rural and urban consumption patterns, where you can say rural households spend 53% of the urban, 53%, and urban households 60%, that too on non-food items. And also it is expended on the beverages, processed foods and milk, and average MPCE has increased by 9% in rural versus 8% in urban areas, and which have actually the states that have performed very well. So this is how we need to discuss this, and in the conclusion we actually talk about the rising consumption, particularly in the non-food sectors, and this is actually happening because of what reason and how we need to diversify our spending. Actually we need to discuss on. Okay, so the next question, this is a prelims question that would actually have been put forward yesterday by Yogesh sir. So now let's solve it. So with reference to fisheries in India, consider the following. India is the largest and fish and aquaculture producer in the world. No, this is wrong. First is China. So India is second. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana aims to double fishers and fish farmers' income. Yes, this is correct. So second statement is correct. And inland fisheries contribute more than half of India's total fish production. Yes, it constitutes around 75% of the total fish production. So since statements 2 and 3 are correct, here your correct answer will be option B. Now moving on, the next question. Consider the following statements with respect to rare earth elements. India is the second largest holder of rare earth sources. No, India is actually the fifth largest holder. REEs, rare earth elements, are primarily found as deposits in xenotime minerals. No, it is in monazite minerals that you found in Kerala, coast of Andhra Pradesh, etc. So this is also wrong. This is also wrong. So China controls around 37% of the global reserves and dominates 70% of global production. Yes, this is correct. Since only third statement is correct, here your answer will be option C. Now moving forward, these are questions that you need to actually solve and the answers to which you need to put it in the comment section below. And in the comment section, we've actually given you link to the websites also where you will actually visit and solve these MCQs where will be marked correct or wrong with detailed explanation. So this one is with respect to that of the depreciation of rupee and what will actually happen. The next one is with respect to that of the SAR initiative that we actually discussed under the Smart Cities mission. And moving forward, next question is about your Brahmaputra River. Which of the following is actually correct? So we actually expect you to solve all these questions in order to get the detailed explanation and your self introspect your performance. So with this, we've actually come to the end of the DNA analysis. So for further live updates and more such interactive sessions, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you. We'll catch up soon.